Finally, that's my one-word reaction to Lorenzo Insigne and Federico Bernardeschi being bought out by Toronto FC. It came through a Canada Day news dump, allowing these two athletes an anonymous exit. Fitting considering they were MIA more times than not over their 3 years at the club. So the Italian job, which turned into a joke, has finally come to an end. It didn't start out all that bad. They hit the ground running. TFC were 4-3-1 in the first 8 games where both players were available. Bernardeschi scoring 6 in his first 8, Insigne 6 in his first 9. The problem after that was their production completely fell off a cliff. Bernardeschi only scored 20 more goals over 91 other TFC appearances to go along with 14 assists in all competition. And for Insigne, even worse, 10 in 67 with 14 assists as well. Even bigger problems than their own production is what it meant for the team concept. The team was flat out bad and was even worse with these players in the team, especially in the case of Insigne. They currently sit 25th in Major League Soccer after finishing 22nd a season ago and dead last in 2023 with these two players as the centerpiece. The plan entering this campaign was Insigne would be bought out. That was the plan all along. They froze him out of the team, hoping that it would force the player's hand. He didn't blink. And then for whatever reason, the club made the decision to bring him back into the fold, one that really doesn't make any sense and didn't at that time, considering he was never going to turn around TFC's fortune. But what did happen over the progression of the season, as I understand it, was there was more and more of a push to see Bernardeschi leave the club. Oftentimes, his actions were seen as performative, and what he represented at the club was really selfishness. He would play for himself, how he wanted and when he wanted. And in fact, the cultural change or reset that the club wants to go through wouldn't be able to take place if he remained at the club. It's funny, the rationale that many fans give or provide based upon their disappointment that Bernardeschi is leaving was that at least he works hard. But that rationale is an indictment on both players and the state of play. It was nowhere near good enough, and it was plain to see. The hierarchy at TFC pushed the board of directors to make the move to allocate the funds in order to buy out Bernardeschi, which they agreed to, but it was also agreed by all. They couldn't just say goodbye to Bernardeschi without doing the same for Lorenzo Insigne. So that meant a big check was forced to be cut. Doing the simple math here, through 2028 for Bernardeschi and one more season of Lorenzo Insigne, that's upwards of $40 million. Now, we're not sure what number both athletes, both players settled on, but certainly this was a very expensive day for Toronto FC. But simply put, these were moves that had to be made. They needed a clean slate for their manager, Robin Fraser. In fact, their best performance of the season came last weekend against Portland Timbers in a 3-0 win when neither one of the players were available. For Insigne, he's just simply washed. He doesn't have the legs or physicality to play in Major League Soccer, and that was clearly apparent. It was very difficult to watch a player who refused to defend, which made life more difficult on all the other players. His care level was low as well, but it was a production on the field more so than anything else that meant that he needed to go. Bernardeschi, it's kind of the opposite. He's a physical specimen. He takes care of himself, but that simply wasn't enough. The outbursts, the renegotiation of his contracts on the fly, on tarmacs, it all had to end. Enough was enough. And on the field, Bernardeschi simply had one club. He would take it out, use it all the time. There was very little composure, and the required final product that the team desperately needed. 13 assists over 3 seasons in Major League Soccer play, nowhere near enough from a player of that stature. So what's next for Toronto FC? There have been plenty of whispers around this club questioning what the future may look like, with Rogers taking the lead in terms of ownership under Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment. Clearing the books is certainly notable, not only for on-field, but the way that the club is perceived or looked at off the field as well. We'll see what all of that means, so stay tuned on that front. On the field, plenty of flexibility for Toronto FC, but they have to take their time. They have more players coming off the books at the end of this season. Johnson, Rosted, Petretta, Etienne, among others, are most certainly on their way out of the club, with other players still competing for a potential future contract either in Toronto or elsewhere. Two designated player spots are certainly advantageous, but they shouldn't be in a hurry to fill both right now. One DP spot being filled this summer is certainly a realistic possibility, with attacking midfield and another striker being clear needs that this club has at present time. These need to be football first decisions that are being made here. The Italians coming to Toronto FC, it was also part of a marketing campaign in the build-up to hosting the World Cup in 2026. But as we see around the city and the current state of the club, everything is behind schedule. So nothing can be done from a marketing perspective. It's winning that will convince the fan base that the project is back on track. It's funny. These two players by a former manager were called Ferraris, vehicles that needed to be taken care of. Instead, in Formula One terms, they were more like Alpines, maybe enough to get around the track, but certainly not enough to make the respective teams competitive. Same thing for Toronto FC. So that's why today is a good day for TFC, turning the page and now finally having the ability to take this project forward. By the way, this plays well behind the scenes. This was something that was widely acknowledged by staffers, something that needed to be done to get this club back on track. Are these the worst contracts in MLS history? Potentially, and probably that's the case. But none of that matters anymore. They're only the worst contracts as long as you're married to them. But now there's been a divorce. It's time to look at this another way. A very expensive mistake, which will hopefully allow this club to move forward in a proper and well thought out way. Finally, something has been done about it, and finally, TFC can move on.